Okay, so I'm going to spend a little bit of time putting my journal together, but I just did want to say that you don't actually have to make your own journal. You could just use, this is just like a little A5 sketchbook. Probably costs a couple of pounds. You could use, and some people find it easier to just use something that's low pressured, that you haven't spent a lot of time or money on, because then you can be a bit freer or not worry about ruining it. But I do like to make my own journal. For some reason, personally, I find that less pressured than if I purchase something, but really whatever works for you. So I literally just have some scraps of, this is just some packaging paper. I'm going to make the cover first, some fabric and just some bits and pieces. I just like to have like a collage cover, but you could just get a piece of card and fold it in half to have your cover, or some fabric, or I'll just leave it entirely up to you. And then if you are making your own journal, the key thing is to have paper that will handle wet media, because I will be using paint for most of the prompts. So I've got some watercolor paper, but some card, or really just use what you have, but it feels nicer to use thicker paper, and I'm going to cut this down to size. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. This was my journal from last year's challenge, which in fact I didn't bind. I just put some elastic to hold it all together, but it's just really yeah, this was my journal from last year. I don't know, I just wanted to show that. Some people like to work small. I personally feel quite constrained by really small pages, but if you find that's easier to fill a small page, like to do with time, then you can make your pages super small. My pages obviously won't be this big, they'll be much smaller than that, but I'll show you as I go along. Okay, so I have collected some bits of paper and cut them down to size. They're all actually, some of them are the same size and some are different sizes. And because I like to work, if you wanted to just work on one side of paper per day, then you'd only need 6 sheets of paper, because folded in half, 1, 2, 3, 4 times 4 gives you 24 days. But because I like to work on a double page, I've got 12 sheets of paper altogether, so two sides per day gives us 24. That's a bit of rigorous math. So yeah, you can decide how large or small you want your journal to be. Okay, so I've assembled the cover with scraps of fabric and yeah, just a collage of different fabrics. And then I decided I'd like to have a little label this year where I'm going to write Advent 2021 on there somewhere. So I'm going to maybe get a pin to hold this all together, and then I'm going to stitch it. Yeah, so really you could do this with paper, you could do this with fabric glue. You don't have to have a sewing machine. You could hand stitch it if you feel that way inclined, or as I say, you could just get any cover really, as long as it's folded in half and all your papers are going to slot into it. And then this time around we're going to do a really simple stitch to hold it all together. But I don't know, I just really like this style of cover. Oh, it makes me feel inspired before I begin. So yeah, okay, so I'm going to take this to my sewing machine and just stitch it all randomly together, and that will be my cover. Okay, so this is my cover. I have stitched everything together, just really random stitching, and this is the other side. It's super messy. I may or may not cover that up with a piece of paper. I don't know, see how I feel. And that's the back. And then now, and it's covers the size of paper that I've chosen. So now I'm just going to fold all the sheets of paper in half, and then so I've begun, and then I'll come back and show you how I'm going to stitch it all together. So yeah, I've got 12 sheets of paper all inside each other. Yeah, this year I will stitch it, but last year I literally got an elastic band and just held it all together like that, and that was it. And as you can see from my journal last year, it held up really well. This just had an elastic band, and I was able to do all of my artwork in there, and it's still holding it strong. So you could literally just do that, find an elastic band big enough to hold it all together. It just feels so simple. I'm really tempted to stop there, but I will stitch it. I'll show you how to stitch it, because it'd be nice to see another way of putting a journal together. So you'll need something to poke holes in your paper. Either a large needle. I have an awl, and you need to make 3 holes. So they all need to be in the same place. So let me see, how am I going to do that? Are these papers, if the papers were thinner, I'd have been able to poke it all the way. You can also make a template to, let me just go ahead and do that. Wouldn't that be easier? So I'm just going to get a piece of paper and yeah, I think it'll be easier to use a template, so because that way I'll make sure that all the holes are in the same place. Your template needs to be the same size as your largest piece of paper. So let me just cut that down to size. Okay. And you can measure it to make sure your holes are even, but I'm just gonna guess. So 1 hole in the middle, and 1 hole at the top, and 1 hole at the bottom. That'll do. And I'll use that then to poke a hole in all the papers. I might be able to do 2 at a time. And you also want to make holes in your cover. So you're just binding them all together. And then you're going to get a needle and thread. I'm using wax thread, but you can use embroidery. What's that stuff called? Embroidery, how's the name? Embroidery thread. You could use twine, you know, whatever you'd like. A thicker thread would be good, because a super thin thread will break. So a needle and some thread, and roughly I think I just do a length 1, 2, 3 roughly. That's way more than I need, but anyway. Thread your needle. Then you're going to start with the middle hole. So you're going to poke your needle through, thread your needle through all the holes that all the papers. Because I didn't clip them together, if you clip them together and poke them all at the same time, you'd probably be able to get your needle through in one go. Because I wasn't that careful, I'm having to feed them through. But in essence, you're literally just putting your needle through the middle hole. Okay, and then we're going to thread the needle through the middle hole in your journal. So everything has gone through the middle hole. So that has, and you must leave a tail hanging out this end, and it's gone through the middle hole. Then you're going to thread the needle through either the top hole or the bottom hole. It doesn't actually matter, but I'll just do the bottom hole. And you're going to do the same thing, thread the needle through the cover and then through all of the holes that we've made here. Oh good, our tail is still there because we need that. Right, so far we've threaded the needle through the middle hole of all the pages and of the cover, then brought the needle out and threaded it back into the bottom hole of the cover and through all of the papers. And then now we're going to go, so your tail is here, and we're going to take our thread across to the top. This is called a pamphlet stitch, very simple. The top, so across like that and through the top hole. So I'm going to thread the needle through all of the holes in the paper, the top holes, throughout and then through the cover. Yes. And then we are going to thread our needle back through the middle hole of everything, the cover and all the papers, and it will come out this end. So let's do that. I'll try and make sure that I'm still in frame. Okay. So it's through the cover, and then we're going to thread it back through the middle hole of all the pages. This bit I always find a tiny bit tricky, but if you just take your time, it'll be fine. Yeah, so it's come up there. And just wiggle it through. You need to make sure that your both ends of the thread are either side of the stitch, the long stitch in the middle. So you just want to make sure that everything is pulled really nice and tight. And before you tie a knot, you can just go and check that all your pages are intact, are attached properly, you haven't missed any. And then we're just going to tie a double knot, and that's it. So and then just cut the edges off, the ends off. And there you have it. That's your journal. It's quite chunky. So because mine doesn't close, I will probably create a couple of ties just to tie it shut. I'll just stitch those on there, and here's the journal. The pages are really, my paper is very thick. But yeah, I hope that was helpful, and I didn't make that look like too much like hard work. But I'm really looking forward to working in it. Hi, so I've just sewed this long red bit of rope on there just as a closure, so I'm just going to tie it round, and that will be my closure. I quite like the red because it sort of, there's another hint of red with this little red checkered thing. But yeah, this is my journal, hastily put together, but I already feels really nice and I'm looking forward to working in it. So thank you for joining me, and I'm looking forward to the beginning of Advent. Lots of love. Bye bye.